Hello and welcome. I just wanted to show you something before we begin this morning. These are what are commonly made locally here, and I have a pile of these out on the veranda, are woven from coconut palm leaves, and it's a common roofing material here in Sri Lanka. Very waterproof, very resilient, and when they get very wet or even begin to mold and rot, they just put them in the sun and they're revitalized. Anyway, you might see out in the corner some robes hanging on a line. Well, this isn't my laundry. It is a temporary screen of old robes to just create a little privacy, not for us here, but for anyone the other side in walking by or, I don't know, neighbouring properties. But rather than old robes on a line, I thought it would be nice to, with some bamboo posts or just some sticks. In fact, I think we're using the old roof timbers, some joists split and fixed into the ground. And one of the elders, village elders here, the Archie, the grandmother of the family, is busily weaving these beautiful palm leaf roofing material, what would you call them, pieces. And we need about 50 or so. So she's making those, and we'll slot them into the bamboo posts to create a nice natural fence, boundary. Not boundary, but screen. I thought I'd share that with you, mainly because it's taking me, I've seen these being dragged around by village elders, ladies, old ladies, every morning on Pindapata. And it wasn't until I had to one day just follow one to discreetly just to try and establish and find out what it was when they take the whole palms and dragging them around and collecting them, what it is that they're doing with them. And it was only after a very rainy period of time, which it is now raining again, that I saw that this is their roof. They put it out after the rain into the sun to dry. And they make these all of the time. And I think local contractors collect them and buy them up. It's a little income, a cottage industry, if you like. So I'm very happy. We've got now about 30 or 40, probably another 20 or 30 to go. Nearly done, and we can get this nice screen put up to give us some privacy. I hope you could have seen all that. I'm not sure whether I've got the camera. I'm having an informal session with you in here today because tomorrow, or by the time the next recording comes out, the Buddha Rupa will have arrived and we'll be sitting there. So I might be sitting here on less formal occasions to chat, as we always have. Or I might be sitting up there for a more formally structured Dharma talk. Indeed, I could be performing puja, chanting there. It's raining. It's been raining heavily. We have a little leak just behind where the camera is sitting in the roof. To be expected, anicca, impermanence, dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, and anatta, not self, or more easy to comprehend, everything's out of our control. We don't control anything in this conditioned world. It is all subject to impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not being within our control. What we can control is what we're doing right now, here, in the present moment, by way of our actions of body, speech, and mind. Kusala karma, good, meritorious actions, or punya karma is meritorious actions. Such actions, punya karma, meritorious actions, are what have created this beautiful samadhi sala. But we don't get upset when the roof leaks, we expect it. It can be looked at, we'll need to adjust all of these tiles anyway. we've sort of left it until it really gets heavy rain over these next couple of weeks, few weeks, so that we can identify any major leaks before the roofing, or some people come back and we finally adjust the tiles up there, because it's yet to be bedded in on the ends. I think that's what they're trying to explain to me, where they put some cement or material to fix it all in place. Or I'm trying to explain to them. I don't know. The conversation is not conversation. I think even if I spoke a lot more Sinhala than the few words I know and the few words I can understand, it wouldn't help either, because it's kind of builder speak. It's very localized depending on materials, accessibility, tools, traditions, cultural influences, all kinds of things, isn't it? I think if you go from one building site to another, working for one contractor to another in the olden days, not perhaps so much now, but even in my own country, in the UK, some working methods might appear odd, strange to you, even when you have no language barriers. So again, we accept this as something that is not anything we can do much about, is out of our control. We learn to adapt so that we can show and demonstrate by example of our own kusala, karma, actions of body, speech and mind, how we, from our own perception, believe from our understanding of the Buddha's teachings, it could be, can be, for our and everyone else's betterment. So like this, I couldn't explain that I didn't want metal sheeting as a screen, or even a concrete wall. That would be very rare. They don't have fences, so to speak, anywhere, boundaries between places. It isn't necessary. It's very informal and relaxed here. But for privacy, a screen of some kind and natural is important. So the only way eventually I could get my message across about this was to just literally hang some old robes there where I thought it should be, which would bring attention, which it did. What on earth's that? Why is that? That doesn't look nice. It doesn't look beautiful. It actually doesn't look unbeautiful either, but it looks odd to people who are not used to seeing monks' robes hanging in the sort of just out in the middle of nowhere. So they're usually hidden away in temples and things like that here, monks, more often than not. So it was to just show that there ought to be some kind of screen there. And then I happened to have managed to get a picture of a man with some of this material making a little shop in the town where I go on Pindapata. He was making a little kiosk to sell some other byproduct of coconut, I expect, considering that everything here is a byproduct of coconut. He had made out of this stuff a nice little kiosk. So I took some photographs of the outside and inside to show how it was all strung together. And when questioned about my temporary screen, was able to show them a picture and say, well, this would be better. Better, one word they know, better very well, and is common. Better, oh yes, coconut. And months I've been trying to explain that this would be a good idea, to no avail. And within minutes, Archie appeared and she said, I have. And I said, oh, good. Knowing I thought she might. And, well, instantly there were many of these things, loads of them all turned up. So there we go. The rain is also wonderful because people very kindly have offered and planted, it's the important bit because they need to be planted, which doesn't take much, trees, small trees, saplings I think you call them, and bushes and plants, because there had to be a certain amount of clearing. I think more than I would have liked or anticipated. Again, uncertainty and things being out of our control. Language barrier again. Before I knew it, an area had been cleared that I would rather have not had been cleared. My little jungle was gone. But I'm assured it was for good reason. Anyway, that aside, it's being replanted as quickly as I can possibly encourage it to be so. So people coming to visit love to bring things. Robes, flashy sort of ornaments, pots, all kinds of mats and expensive material things that are completely unnecessary and not needed. So I'm saying don't bring anything, please, and we don't need any more food or any of those sort of contributions. But you can always, if you need to bring something, just bring a plant, a tree, something green and alive. It's also, I know flowers are beautiful and nice, but they're not so readily available as we might see in florist kind of arrangements, like in my own country, the UK, or in Thailand. They have a lot of flowers, and in India, made into offering gifts for temples. Here, they tend to just pick the flowers from the temple tree, literally the flower, not even the stalk, put it in a little dish and offer it to the Buddha. So that's quite nice in a way, because those flowers are there again tomorrow. They've regrown on the temple tree. So it's not causing any long-lasting damage or creating any unnecessary industries. It's natural, cost-free, it's nature. So it's a rather beautiful way of doing it. So they don't need to be flower offerings in that sense. But that is a part of their devotional practice here. They're doing anyway. So when people want to offer something else, now I just encourage them to bring a tree or a plant, pop it in the ground and give it some water, and it's a beautiful thing to offer. And it's offering it to nature, to the universe. It's offering it to all beings for habitation, for food. It's a universally appreciated offering, as well as very much appreciated by myself as someone who has this wonderful opportunity to live here. So, moving on with your comments and your questions today, after my rather long preamble. The first comment, it is related to what I was preambling about, I think. In my meditation, once again, excuse me for not including the entire comment. I need to some extent find the question and condense it to that, as long as I haven't hopefully missed out too much relevant background material. Okay, the comment is as follows, or the question is as follows. In my meditation on non-attachment, I find I cry a lot more after having learned the true nature of impermanence. I now find everything that much more beautiful because I know they are impermanent. This leads me to cry a lot, which feels like the opposite of what should happen when I practice non-attachment. What are your thoughts / experiences with this? Well, firstly, are these tears of joy and happiness, or tears of woe and misery and grief? I'm assuming the latter, because tears of joy and happiness are an experience of what we call in the Pali language piti and sukha, which is rapture and joy. So a sort of a physical feeling, and symptoms such as tearing up of eyes resulting from extreme happiness, sukha. Piti, rapture, sukha, happiness. That is, again, phenomena that will arise and pass away. All conditioned things arise, pass away, and are out of your control. You're practicing, you say, your meditation is on non-attachment. That's where you're going a little bit wrong or misunderstanding something. Your meditation is not on anything. Your practice is keeping precepts, is practicing meditation which is not thinking about things, not contemplating. That is reflection. That can be done before your meditation or after your meditation. Investigation can be done preferably after your meditation as a result of stilling the mind without thinking, by simply concentrating on a meditation object, allowing the mind to clear, settle, and become free from thinking. We're looking to develop the quality of non-attachment, develop the quality of seeing clearly, vipassana. It isn't a practice, vipassana. It is a quality, as is attachment, or the understanding of non-attachment is a part of developing wisdom. Sila, moral virtue; samadhi, meditation; panya, wisdom. A part of wisdom, wisdom primarily being not intellectual knowledge, the acquisition of anything, intellectual knowledge, but the understanding of what we already have, even the understanding of what we already know. We know we're going to die, but we don't understand it, so we push it aside. We hide old people away. We bury and conceal death. From where I come from, it's not exposed. Dead bodies are not paraded through the streets in London, whereas they are in many parts of India, because death is inevitable. It comes to us all. So why ignore it, hide it away? Because we don't understand it. So right view on wisdom comes from understanding that all conditioned things, as I was saying, are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. But establishing right view also, as you clearly have an understanding of the true nature of impermanence, can also be clung to. Clinging, the opposite of letting go, is a hindrance. It's wanting something to be otherwise. So if your tears are those of sadness as a result of those beautiful things being impermanent, it is because you're wishing it to be otherwise, that they were permanent. This is not right view, this is wrong view. It's not appreciating what you have come to know. It's not understanding what you know. We have to understand that all conditioned things are permanent. All conditioned things, what I mean by that is everything, all experience. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking about. This physical body, including the physical 5 senses of eyes, ears, a nose, a mouth, or tongue, and skin for feeling, are then in contact with our external experience. Our thinking brain then processes with perception. So these are the 5 khandhas, which another question is coming to later, I think. But rupa is the first of the 5 khandhas. That is the physical body, including those 5 sense organs. Sanya is perception or recollection as a result of that sense contact. Thinking brain, memorizing, remembering, recollecting what it is your experience is, what it might be from previous experience. If something's hot, don't touch it, put it down, for instance. Then feelings that result as a result of that experience, that sense contact, Vedana. Then there's Sankhara, which is mental formations, more complex, more subtle, but also Sankhara is everything, because mind is the forerunner of all things. All experience comes and is mind-born because of the former two of these five khandhas, the sense contact, and then the perception of that sense contact is mind-born to create feelings which are both physical in the body, like piti, rapture, and emotional in the brain, like sukha, happiness, resulting in an overall feeling, Vedana. And this all comes as a result of vijnana consciousness. But that isn't the citta, the mind, conscious awareness, no. Vijnana is sense consciousness related to rupa. So the five khandhas, the five aggregates there, are simply that, the five material aggregates. This building is made of many aggregates, from fine sand, which is sifted. They make up these sieves, which are two-man sieves, a person on each end, to sieve the sand. Is that the right word, sieve? To get it very fine, to screed, say, this floor, or this asana, or the walls. But for the more substantial creation of columns and walls, they need solid aggregates, components of larger rocky material, leading up to the large blocks of rock which build the walls. Different grades of aggregates. This is our physical form, but all coming from the elements: solidity, liquidity, gaseousness, temperature, and space, in which all of that wouldn't be if it didn't have somewhere to exist. But this is all conditioned things. It's all sankhara, it's everything. It's all impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. But clinging to that view is still attachment. So you might have an understanding of that view, but you're clinging to the view and forgetting that the practice is to let go of all conditioned things. So whether they're beautiful or ugly, impermanent, which they are, or even if you thought they weren't, they're still not to be clung to. They're to be let go of. This doesn't mean we cannot appreciate beautiful things. For example, I appreciate this meditation hall, a physical manifestation of a determination and your generosity. And hopefully, after my time here in this existence, others will also be able to enjoy it for many generations to come. And in the meantime, welcome many people to visit me here and for us to enjoy meditation and practice together. But if I was to have my visa removed or something like that, not be able to get another visa and have to leave the country, I would have to live somewhere else, as I've done many times before over the last 15 years. Well, and before that I was always moving around as well, so for the last 50 odd years. We don't cling. It's the clinging, it's the attachment that brings the tears of grief. So I'm not encouraging you to meditate on anything. Keep meditation as just that, samadhi, sama samadhi. But spend some time in reflection or investigation on the nature of attachment, being that you're attaching to right view. rather than you're just knowing the right view, rather than understanding it and using that understanding to your advantage. So say suddenly I was unable to live here, I understand that's impermanence. It's unsatisfactory, yes, that is as a result of impermanence. But it's not within my control, but what is within my control is how I react to that situation. Do I complain? Do I wail? Do I cry? If you can change a situation for everyone's benefit, then you can make effort, yes. If it's within your power, within your ability. But if it's only going to cause more trouble, more anguish, anxiety, and grief, you can walk away, knowing that from now on, your actions of body, speech, and mind will determine what happens in the next moment. So like when I came here, just with my bowl and my 3 robes, my first thought after finding shelter and a night's sleep was to go on Pindapata in the morning. I arrived late at night in the rain around this time of year and slept, woke up early before sunrise, went with my bowl into the village, which is here, and then the town a little further away, and was greeted with such a welcome and open arms of offerings and food and surprise, because they're not used to seeing monks on arms around Pindapata here so much these days, and a foreign monk at that. And questions: where you stay, where room, where temple, all of this. And one thing, it leads to another. But what led to where we are now, and this, and here, this present moment, was my actions of body, speech, and mind. Now, I could have probably just gone and sat in a restaurant that morning or something, a cafe. And someone might have offered me some food, someone might not have, and not moved from that spot, and then slept again. But our duty as monks is to be seen at that time of the morning, at not only other time, but at that time of the morning, for this purpose, to further the Buddha Sasana, to bring the Dharma to people, without proselytizing, without not in an evangelical way, but by way of example. A monk wandering alone, quietly, not asking, but when offered, accepting gratefully whatever food is to be offered into one's bowl. There's no more pleasanter experience than from the receiver, the monk, or the offerer, the giver, the donor, the lay practitioner. It's a wonderful, wonderful example of interdependence, the fourfold assembly: monks, nuns, upasakas, upasikas. And I know from what I've learned in Buddhism, that's what I was to do that morning. So from going on alms round, we now have this situation. And if this situation was to change as a result of anicca, dukkha, anatta, I'd go on alms round again, as I've continued to do ever since here. So you enjoy the beauty of those things, as impermanent as they are, but understand anicca, impermanence, but don't just cling to that knowledge intellectually. Understand it. Reflect on. There's a chant in the chanting book depending on which chanting book you have, but the Thai sort of version of the Pali chanting books has a commonly used reflection. I think it's in the other chanting book I often send out a link to also, but it's on the 10 reflections, which is more usually associated with bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, monks and nuns, so ordained practitioners. But included within those are the 5 reflections, that all conditioned things are impermanent and therefore we will be separated from those we love as those will be separated from us, and so on and so on. And it is this very regular reflection that's so important to remind us. And then you won't cry. The only tears will be tears of joy as a result of piti and sukha. Tears of grief become rather illogical. What is it all about, crying? It's wanting something to be other than it is, isn't it? A little toddler in the supermarket creating merry hell, screaming and stamping its feet, and you feel so sorry for the poor mother. Oh no, how embarrassing is that when it can't have its thing it wants. It screams and cries. It's like one of these cats, they're all very quiet, but one does the same. I was expecting a visit from them because it's early, way too early to feed them. But because I'm up early doing this, normally if I'm up meditating, they don't bother me. But if I put all the lights on and fans on and I'm walking around, they think, yay, it's morning, feeding time. And then they're very disappointed. But maybe they've got used to that because they're not running around in here. And one of them goes, wow, 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 like this. So I hope that clears up and gives some understanding to, essentially, in answer to your question, stop trying to meditate on things. Just meditate, yeah? If you want to reflect on things, investigate things, that's for another time. Meditation, samasamadhi, is just that. Okay. I do have a question regarding parental permission. If one parent has abandoned the family and a child since many years ago and there is no more contact nor affiliation with them, is it still a requirement to have them sign as well? Or is one functional parent enough? You're referring to parental permission to ordain. In answer to your question, it's not even necessarily something they have to sign for, but it helps if you take a letter, especially if you're going to another country where you don't speak the language. And yes, if you only have one parent responsible for you, or responsible adult, I would suggest it only really applies to natural mother and father, but I think it's to your own understanding and advantage, and also out of respect for your carers, to include in that any guardian, any person responsible for you. But if you're old and you've left home and your parents are still alive, it is still a requirement that they give permission for you to ordain. Because after all, they may be relying on you to look after them in their old age. And if you're away in another country or even locally, if you're living in a monastery, if you're a monk, you're unable to do that until they get really ill. So you do require their permission. But if one is estranged, then no, just the one that remains is sufficient. How much does a little house like that cost in Sri Lanka? As I approach retirement age, I'm ever more tempted to head over early and ordain. There's a lot of contradictions there. So this isn't a little house. It was a little house that was falling down. It didn't cost anything. It's already owned and still owned by the people who owned it before, and the land beneath it. on which there is my kuti. But as a monk, we're allowed to stay in empty buildings. And what has happened here as a result of people's generosity and a coming together of the community, we have refurbished this old building to be used as a meditation hall. So it doesn't have facilities such as a house and wouldn't be suitable for a lay person to live in, only really suitable for practicing meditation, or a wandering ascetic, a samana, a monk whom is used to living outside can get shelter here, much like my kuti, which is just right next door there in the neighbouring building. The cost of living here I have no idea about, because monks don't use money. I've not paid for anything since I've been here. Things get paid for, so I have to have a kapia, someone who's a lay practitioner, whom is around all the time, whom can, if things needed to be paid for with cash, I can't think of any examples because most things are just generously offered and I need very little. But if something did, they have an equivalent of petty cash, let's call it, if you know what petty cash is. Not necessarily a tin, it's not that much, I should think an envelope or something with some cash that maybe someone's given at some point or has found its way into their supervision, and it's there for that. They deal with that kind of thing. And any online donations go into a non-profit organisation and is managed and pays for things that way. For instance, all the materials and the coordination and the building and the work and everything here to create this hall. So I have very little to do with that. I can tell you that the overall cost of this was very little by comparison to building something similar back in my own country, but that's only because it's been done largely out of people offering their time by way of service and generosity. The place to be renovated in the first instance being offered for that purpose. So it isn't something that you can compare or relate to conventional worldly life and retirement. From my understanding, to retire here is, compared to some places, relatively expensive for foreigners. If you want modern conveniences like air conditioning and things like that. So, but you can, I think, watch videos on retiring in different countries and things like that if you're of that age. But if you're looking to ordain, then you should try and do that in the country where you are. And if there isn't anything available, somewhere as close as possible. Don't think of ordination as a way of retiring. It's very much not that. It's beginning. You begin your working life. Now, I sometimes flippantly say, oh, well, I retired a long time ago. I retired from worldly life. But I began work as a trainee, as a novice, which I still really am, learning and training on this path. And in that new career, I have a long way to go. So you begin again. You don't retire. You retire from worldly life, but begin a much tougher, harder way of living. If you're not fully understanding what I was talking about, the nature of right view. It's all well and good knowing it intellectually, but you have to understand that right view isn't a philosophy. It is the characteristics of existence. It is the very nature of the universe and all that is within it. This is wisdom, understanding that, accepting that that is the way it is, and letting go of wanting it to be anything other than that or otherwise. This is wisdom. Ordination isn't an easy retirement, don't think that. But when you understand it, it is not only retirement from worldly life, it is the path to retirement from samsara, so rebirth into this continual cycle, this hamster wheel, this treadmill of existence in varying realms. Now this is quite a long one, and I think I've been speaking for a long time, but I'll just go through it. Let's see what we can do with this question. If it is indeed a question, I'll have to read it. I'll begin at the beginning. It seems to me that my mind is always with me, yet somewhat separate from the 5 gates and form. I assume you mean the 5 aggregates there, or the 5 gates could be the 5 senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and form. But that would be aggregates, okay? So no matter what I do, there I am. If I'm sitting or working, whether I'm in pain or joyous, there I am. It's like, try not to be aware. Impossible. The only time it seems totally lost is when I'm sleeping, but not always. Sometimes there I am too. I was wondering if you could speak to this. The main thing I'm seeing is this I am coming up a lot, which you are not. You are, as I was just talking about, the 5 aggregates. You are experiencing, and that which is experiencing is aware of this experience through sense consciousness, but that knowing of even that sense consciousness, the citta, the mind, is aware. But it is not you, it is not an I, it is not a self. I think you need to go back to the beginning, understanding anicca, dukkha, anatta, and how, in relation to that, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and not self, which I've just been talking about, how in relation to that, these aggregates fit, exist. We can take those aggregates in terms of form, even including the physical thinking brain, which is also subject to deterioration, anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, as elements only. And therefore just part of this building, for instance. I'm made up of solid elements, atoms, mainly of space, as is this building. It's all one. If I die here now, rot, I'll eventually become a mess, but then eventually just dust, to be swept out of the doors back into the earth. I rather hope, if I'm going to die, that happens right here, because that would be a great way of going, I think. But that being the case, we can see that these bodies are not us. So I'm not sure what your question is. You're wondering if we could speak to this, speak about this, let's say. Speak about understanding of not self. There is no I. Sit and just ask yourself, before you meditate, who am I? What am I? You're just a name on a piece of paper as a result of a biological interaction of your parents. But you are the result of causes and conditions in previous lifetimes you put in place, and clinging to existence rather than non-attachment, which results in rebirth. So now it's raining very heavily. which is fantastic for the trees, but perhaps not so good for the hearing. I'm not sure. I hope there's something useful there. If there is, please use it. If not, just let it go also. Until next time, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu. And next time, I might add, we should be talking in here with the Buddha Rupa in place. So I'll look forward to introducing you to that. Sukhi Hotu.